Hi, I'm Denny and welcome to Raven Studios. Today is going to be the first in a new series of videos I'm going to do showing you how I approach arrangement within my own music. Now the reason I've decided to do a series of them is I tend to do different arrangements for whatever slightly different types of music I'm making. For instance, if I'm making a W house record, the arrangement will be different to if I do a deeper melodic one. And then also, it would change if I'm doing a peak time acid house record. The arrangement's going to be different again. So I thought it'd be really fun to start on that peak time acid house record. It's a brand new track from me. It's unreleased at the minute, but it's a really good way for me to show you how I approached it, my thought process behind it, and how I like to create a start, middle, and end within the track. It's really important to create a groove, hook people in, make these subtle changes so the track doesn't get boring, create a moment, create a drop, and then take it out in the outro. And this is a really good example of how I've done that. So let's dive in, take a look, and I'll show you everything and my thought process behind it. Okay, so as you can see, this is the finished track all laid out in front of you. Before I dive in and show you exactly what I've done, just to give you some background on the way that I make my music is, I'll tend to do something called sketching. And what that is, I like to get ideas down quickly. I like to work quickly. So I like to build a groove, add loads of elements within a 16, 30 or 32 bar loop and see if they're working together. What I'll tend to do then is get a load of sounds and elements in that loop, and then I'll start muting sounds or soloing sounds and bringing things in and out, just so I get an idea of, you know, say if I bring a hi-hat in, will that add some extra energy to the groove that's playing now? If I take the kick out, will that create an intro to a breakdown, etc, etc. So once I've got all the elements, what I'll tend to do then is just start stretching it out and sketching it. Now, the first thing that I want to say is I got into music production after I was a DJ. So I was DJing first for years, and then I started making music basically to make my own tunes to play within my sets, which I think a lot of people do. So I was very aware that I needed to make club edits. So I was very aware that I needed an intro, the track to build into the main part of the track, and then the outro. Now, the reason you need the intro and the outro specifically, and specifically a beat intro and outro, is if you're DJing, you need a little bit of room within the track to mix it in. And obviously you don't want to mix the track straight in so loads of elements are coming in. You want to mix it and then let the track drop and then build up on its own. Now, when I say drop, I mean maybe drop the bass line in. If you're DJing, you might want to switch. So the first thing I always like to do is start on the intro. And what I'll tend to do is work in 16 or 18 bar sections. So what I'm going to do is just highlight that there within the locators there. And we're going to work on the first 16 bars. Now, what you can see is this is just basically the drum groove. It's a very simple drum groove as well. And this is, you know, a lot of the time if you're DJing in a club, the crowd aren't going to hear this section of the track. This is literally a tool, really. But it's still an important part of the track because you need to look, you know, it's the bit where the DJ is going to bring the track in, kind of start mixing it in, and then, you know, maybe drop it a little bit further. So what I've got in my intro here is I've got the kick, I've got a shaker, I've got an open hat, some more moving hats, which are these. It's just a little loop. And then I've got a clap. What I've done is that layered it with another clap just to kind of thicken it out. And then I've got a vocal loop. But what that's doing is that's fading in the intro there. So I've automated that and that's fading up. And the reason that is it starts with a beat intro and then that slowly fades in over this kind of first 16 bars. And the reason that I want that is I don't want it to come in from the start because I just want the drums to come in from the start. I have also got a held string which comes in. And that's there, and again that fades in. As you can see, that fades in to 16 bars, but then goes up even further to 32. Again, that's just a really subtle frequency filler. I'll play everything together in a moment and you'll hear it, but it's just so, because the drums are so basically naked and there's not a lot of drums going on, it's quite a simple drum rhythm. I find having a few little sounds fading in the background just fills a bit of space. It creates a little bit of atmosphere, and that's really important. I've also got this background effects, and that's just basically a loop that kind of sits in the background, and that's it. So when I play everything together, I'll play you. So what you will have heard as well is a little tease of the bass line there. That's just a little bass note in there, just to kind of break it up in the section, like in the middle of it. But then what I've done is put a reverse crash at the end of the 16 bars here, and that's to intro. Very simple effect, but it just creates a little bit of tension to go into the next section. Because what I like to do is work in kind of either 16, 32 or 8 bars. But it's a very simple intro, like I say. It basically doesn't really change for 16 bars, but you've got a few things fading in. So that's just basically your kind of DJ drum intro. Now, I used to do kind of more 32 intros, which is a 16 bar intro at, this is 127 BPM. Tends to be about 30 seconds. So that gives you like 30 seconds for the DJ to mix in. They can always loop parts of the drums if they want to mix a bit longer. But we actually live in an era where DJ sets are no longer as long as they used to be. You used to get much longer DJ slots. Nowadays, you kind of, I suppose the average is an hour to an hour and a half, which, you know, maybe 2 hours if you're lucky. Whereas back in the day, we used to get 3-4 hours. So you could actually play longer records. Even up until, I'd say, 8 years ago, I was making intros, just beat intros that would be like 32 bars a minute. But with the world we live in and Spotify, where you're having to really cram, you have to do edits, which I am going to do a video on Spotify arrangements as well at some point, just to show you what I mean by that. But yeah, people's attention spans, we live in a TikTok generation, they're not as long, you get the short set times. So my tracks have actually become a lot shorter than they used to be. If you listen to my older records from back in the day, some of them are like 8 minutes, 7.5 minutes. A lot of mine now I try to keep about 6.5, sometimes 5.5, but around 6 to 6.5 minutes where I'm at these days. So in order to do that, I think putting in a 30-second beat intro is quite good. And then what happens is it leads you into the next section, which is where I want the bass to drop. This would be the bit where I hear as a DJ, you would mix in and then swap the bass line. And, you know, in the outro of the last record that was playing, you'd bring in the intro of this and then mix it, flip the bass line and drop it into the bass line here. So what we'll do is now have a look at when the bass drops, and this is where the groove really starts to build. And what I'll tend to do is do it in 8-bar sections where a new sound will come in every 8 bars. So let's have a look at that. I'm going to show you how things start to develop now, and then we'll go into the first break. And if you want to watch the rest of this video, please check out www.theravenstudios.com.